All right, guys, so the first thing we're going to do is we are going to make sure that our celebrity photo, so in this case, I chose Chris Evans, Captain America, we need to make sure that the letters and numbers for our grid are all aligned the same way. So if you haven't done this yet, that's the first thing you're going to do. So the first line of your photo is where your letters and numbers are going to go, and make sure you are drawing these extra light. Remember that I am always pressing a little bit harder than you will so that you can see it on the screen. Okay, so I have my ABCs all the way down, and then remember that the first box doesn't start here, it starts here in the same box as A. So this is box A1, and then it goes across. Okay, so this is box A1, this would be B2, this would be C3, D2, E6, okay? That way you understand what we're referring to. And you should remember this from just math and coordinates. It is a little bit about math. So using a grid, we are going to use our kind of math brains to get that started. I've got my pencil, I've got an eraser, and you may want to grab like a couple sheets of paper or Post-its to help you kind of block out some of your areas. So I will leave a couple off to the side in case we need them. All right, so we're gonna get started. The first thing we're gonna do with our contour. So contour means kind of like an outline. So that's kind of what it translates to. So contour in art means outline. So we are looking at, the chin, the jawline, around the ear, the hairline, etc. And then we can go back in and add in more details as we go. So the first thing that I'm going to do is look at the neck and jawline. So looking in this lower right quadrant. So I'm looking for where everything starts and stops. So looks like the neck starts in I8. So I8. Okay, and the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to look, okay, and I'm going to scroll over here. I'm going to look at where this neck starts. This is I8, okay, and I can double check by scrolling up. Okay, this is I8 here, and I'm zooming in, and that's the cool part about doing this on your computer, guys, is that you can zoom in as well to really focus on one box at a time. So I am going to look at I8, and I'm looking at how much space is that negative space, is this sort of black space over here versus where the neck is versus where the jawline is. So you want to think proportionally. You want to think about where things start and stop. So again, I'm in I8, and I want to make sure that I like to draw in the negative space shape. A lot of times that's easier than focusing on the celebrity or the person or thing that you're drawing itself. So I'm drawing in that negative space shape. Okay, then I'm going to come down, and obviously it should connect, and I'm looking to draw that negative space shape down in the box below. So again, I'm drawing the black space on my screen, and I'm looking to make sure that proportionally this area matches this area over here. So I come down, and then it kind of goes into his neck, and it looks like he's got dog tags or some sort of necklace chain thing on. So again, now I'm kind of looking at the neck size and shape. So I looked at this corner to see how much space is taken up there, because as it goes into the black for the background, it actually becomes kind of difficult to see. And then my drawing space comes down here. Okay, and I'm double checking as I go, and you can't see my head, but I am looking at my photo of Chris Evans about 60 to 70% of the time, and only 40 to 30% on my paper. And that sounds kind of ridiculous, but your eyes are what's going to do a lot of the tracing. And then you're just going to kind of check with your pencil. Okay, so the next step would be to come back up here to where I started, and I'm going to look for that jawline. Now it's a little tricky because he does have a beard. So I'm not worried about that texture yet, because normally I would have to draw that in. I'm just going to draw it as a smooth line for now, and then we'll add in texture later, because that's obviously a little bit more complicated. All right, so I come down. And for this one, this next box, I'm looking at where does it start and stop. So it kind of stops down here. Goes all the way to the corner. And then from here over to here. And then I would need to start moving my image. Goes just below this line down here. And over. And I'm going to kind of follow my way. You could always zoom back out if you don't feel like you need to zoom in, but I do think zooming in is really going to help with finding those proportions inside each box. So again, we're just doing the contour, which I talked about being like an outline. Think of it like a coloring book. So we're going to give ourselves basic information to get started. So face structure and shape. And then I think this one needs to be trimmed. So I'm going to erase a little bit. If your pencil eraser is no good, make sure you use your magic rub. All right, so I'm going to check right now, make sure letters and numbers wise. I'm in I3. That looks good. All right, so now at this point, I'm working my way up to like where his ear zone is. So I'm going to look at that negative space area again versus the positive space. I'm essentially tricking my brain not to think about drawing Chris Evans. I'm thinking about drawing lines and shapes. And that's going to be hugely important to the success of this project. You cannot say, I'm drawing an eye, I'm drawing a nose, I'm drawing an ear. If you do that, you're going to draw what your brain thinks it knows how to do. And unfortunately, usually that's not very good. Because a lot of times in photographs, things are a little crooked. The eyes are offset. You wouldn't believe how many times I see people draw the eyes in a straight line, whereas in my photo, you can see they are slightly on an angle. So you really need to trust the grid and trust your eyes and proportions versus what you think should be there, because that's not what this is about. Drawing with a grid is about drawing realistically, drawing lifelike, because you are breaking it down into boxes and proportions. This is how all those, perfect Renaissance paintings were done, was using math, was boxing things out. They even have talked about people using old camera structures, kind of like a rudimentary projector, to project the images onto their canvases or walls or whatever they're painting to get that like perfect proportions and structures in their painting. Now, if your photo is like mine and you kind of go off into the black in the background, you do kind of got to look really hard and kind of squint your eyes a little bit to make sure that you know where those outer edges are. And we'll talk about that more when we get into shading, but it is important that you establish where everything is. So make sure that you don't just not do that part, because it would look very awkward. And so a lot of times zooming in helps there. So mine probably looks a little funny right now because that's the top of his head. Once we get his hairline in, I think it will help. So I'm going to slide over. I'm going to kind of jump around a little bit. I'm going to come back over here. And I'm going to make sure that that ear gets marked in. So if this was I, I'm going to move up. One more box. All right, so I'm going to draw in the ear next to make sure that that gets put in. And again, I'm going to use the negative space, that black space, to help me create the shape necessary. I'm looking at where the top of the ear. So again, I'm really focusing on that black space versus that lighter space of the actual ear. I'm not focused on it being an ear. I'm looking at the curve and how it connects. All right, and that's where it goes into his beard, so I can stop there. I'm not worried about any of this inner stuff yet. That's kind of the next step. We want to get our basic outlining done because you don't want to get too far and then realize that you were a complete box off. You want to make sure that this gets done first so you can look at your proportions, zoom out, and kind of say, okay, I think that basic face structure and shape is correct. Okay, so we're going to go back over here. And I'm going to kind of climb back up to where that hairline is. And again, it does kind of disappear into the black. So I kind of have to pay attention because actually I'm pretty sure the hair extends further out than what I'm currently drawing it as. But I can see where that shadow is. Okay, so now I'm going to go and I'm going to do his hairline because I think that's important. So I'm up here in box, let's see, C6 and 7-ish. So C6 and 7. And again, I know that there is a little bit of texturing there because of the hairline, but we're drawing it as simple shapes right now. We're not worried about drawing in all those pieces of hair and things like that because that can get a little tricky. I mean, my lines are getting a little sketchier because I'm kind of giving it a representation of hair. All right, and now I'm getting to the point where I'm kind of at the beard area, so I'm going to go ahead and stop there. I'm going to continue back up here. So this was box 6, so I'm in 5 now. So I'm looking at how that kind of swoops down. All right, and then it kind of drops into a shadow. So I'm going to leave that there. And then I'm going to zoom out a little bit on my photo so I can look again. And I'm going to put in this highlight. So that highlight on the side of the face that's like right over here. So I'm looking in E2 down to about H2. Because that is super important because that, number one, I need to make sure that that's going to stay light when I go to shade. But that's helping shape the side of his face. So drawing zoomed out, I'm finding to be a little more difficult because it was nice to be able to zoom in and get really close to be able to see my proportions a little bit more correctly. So I do recommend zooming in for sure, but I'm going to show you drawing zoomed out just so you can watch this sort of develop. So there's that highlight there, and we talked about that ear that falls in here, and here's kind of his hair that sneaks in over on this side. All right, so once I get the kind of the big head shape done, oh, but it looks like I need to finish over here, sorry. I kind of skipped that for the time being. Let's see, I'm down here by here. Just kind of connects back up to the ear. I am going to do his neck on the other side. That looks like it's J3. And it's very subtle because it's pretty dark over on that side. And then I'm going to go ahead and put his shirt collar in. And then I would know that his shoulders are going to be somewhere off over here too. And I'm looking for where it would be on the other side. Again, it's a little tricky because of it being really dark in the background. Okay, so I've got basic head structure done. So now is the time where you kind of are going to kind of look across and make sure, did I get all the proportions right of the jawline, the face shape, hairline, etc. Once you get this done, then you can move on to adding in your detail work. Okay, so we're talking eyes, nose, mouth, etc. I think the one thing that I am going to do before we call it a day is I am going to block in the beard. I think that it's going to be super helpful as we go further on. So if your person has facial hair of any kind, it would be a good opportunity to get that marked down. because that's going to help frame everything else out as far as like facial features go. If you have a female and maybe she has a lot of hair or hair comes into her face, definitely draw that in as well. All right, so this kind of comes down here. Let's see. All right, gotta figure out what box I'm in. I'm in I 6 and 7 for this corner of his mustache. All right, it gets kind of dark over there. And this is where the mouth comes in. And then over on this side. Just double checking myself a little bit here. And remember, this is sort of a rough-in. Okay, so I think I've got enough information. I know it looks a little weird down here, but I think you'll understand more how that's going to be helpful later on. I could go in and quickly kind of put in this zone over here. All right. I feel like I'm at a good place. If I really wanted to, I could put in the eyebrows as well. But we can talk about that more tomorrow. But those eyebrows are kind of where we're going to start to kind of get the eyes in set, and then we'll finish up the ears and the mouth, and we'll talk about all those things next time.